Shields up, Ironbreakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which will be coming out later this year during the holiday season. And this is a title that I personally can't wait to get my hands on because I'm a pretty big fan of the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise, and I've played Xenoblade Chronicles as well as Xenoblade Chronicles X quite extensively, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with both those games. So today I would like to share with you, both newcomers as well as fans of the previous franchises, what Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is going to be all about. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, for those of you that aren't aware what this franchise is about, is a JRPG. It will feature real-time combat. If you want to compare Xenoblade Chronicles combat with anything, the closest genre that I can actually compare it to is probably going to be MMOs, traditional MMOs, where you have your skill bar and you use your skills to damage your enemies. This is very similar, particularly the previous entries in the Xenoblade Chronicles, where you actually would select different skills using the D-pad and then press a button to activate those different skills, and some skills would play off each other with different effects. We'll talk more about combat as we go further down, but why should you care? It's like, to me, the experience of Xenoblade Chronicles is both a rich story as well as some of the best exploration I've ever experienced in video games, particularly Xenoblade Chronicles X. When it comes to exploring a world, I don't think I've ever played any other game that gave me as much joy in both exploration and discovery as Xenoblade Chronicles X. And I'm hoping Xenoblade Chronicles 2 will do that game justice, even though the focus of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is quite different from Xenoblade Chronicles X. And let me get into that, because a lot of you guys are beginning to hear Xenoblade Chronicles X, Xenoblade Chronicles. What's the relationship between all of these games? Do I have to play some of the other games to get into Xenoblade Chronicles 2? Do I have to know the story? What's the deal? And the deal here is very simple. Each of the Xenoblade Chronicles games is its own thing, almost like Final Fantasy. You know how you have Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy 8 and Final Fantasy 7? They're essentially completely different stories, and the only thing that is somewhat similar in them is maybe some of the combat, some of that other stuff. Xenoblade Chronicles is very much like that. So you can play Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and you don't need to play any of the other games if you don't want to, and you will understand the story of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 perfectly. You don't have to play any of the other titles to understand it. So why does Xenoblade Chronicles exist? And then the next game that came out is Xenoblade Chronicles X, and now there's another one that's called Xenoblade Chronicles 2. That's somewhat confusing. Some people might be wondering, so why is it like this? And the thing is, the original Xenoblade Chronicles focused a lot in the story aspect of the game. It was a very narrative-driven game, whereas Xenoblade Chronicles X focused a lot more on exploration, which is not surprising to me because, like I said, some of the best exploration experiences I've had ever in video games were in Xenoblade Chronicles X. Now, you guys might be wondering, so how good was the story, though, in the original Xenoblade Chronicles, which was the focus? And to me, it's very easy to talk about this one experience that I've had, which is when I first started playing Xenoblade Chronicles. Within the first 2 or 3 hours, there's a particular event that happened that nearly took me to tears. And that, to me, reveals a really well-crafted narrative and really well-built characters if I was that invested into the game 2 or 3 hours in. So that's the kind of quality that you guys can kind of expect when it comes to story in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, because Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is once again going to focus more on the narrative, going to focus more on the story, and maybe a little bit less in the exploration. However, from the footage that I have seen so far, it seems that exploration is also going to be a major aspect of it. As a matter of fact, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is being built on top of the engine of Xenoblade Chronicles X, so I expect a lot of good things when it comes to that. Now, one of the first things that you guys will notice if you've seen any footage at all from the previous games, and now you see Xenoblade Chronicles 2, is you will notice that there's been a shift in the art style. Now, depending on what kind of art style you prefer, I would say that Xenoblade Chronicles X was a little bit more Western. Xenoblade Chronicles 1 as well. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 really goes for a more Japanese anime. They have that cell shading going on and the exaggerated eyes and stuff on the characters, which is very different from what they've done in the previous titles. But personally, I'm glad that they changed the stuff that much, because, you know, if it looked too similar to the previous entries in the franchise, it would look too similar to what the game was. So to me, I'm very curious to see what else they do with it. I want to see more animations. I want to see more combat. Even though I've already seen like 40 minutes of combat before I recorded this video so that I could tell you guys more about the mechanics and all these other things. I want to see more, you know? I like looking at different art styles and appreciating the different things that they do with them. So far, the animations are looking pretty good. The art style also seems to be more colorful than the previous titles, which again, to me is a good thing. I like colorful, vibrant colors on screen is something that I appreciate quite a bit. So let's talk a little bit more about the world. So the world of Xenoblade Chronicles, both the original as well as this one, the characters live on top of titans. Now, these titans are essentially the landmass in the world. Now, in the original Xenoblade Chronicles, throughout the sections I've played, because I haven't finished Xenoblade Chronicles, the original one, the titans were not moving. Now, in this one, however, we've already seen footage where you can actually see the animation of the titans, which I thought was amazing. And I'm wondering if we can go all the way up to like the titan's head and you can actually see the titan's head moving throughout the world. Like that is something that I want to do, just like explore the highest peak of the titan and like see it in motion. Like these are all things that I just want to get into the game and start exploring and you know, figuring out. But you're going to be on top of titans, and each titan is going to have like its own theme. So the gameplay that we've seen was like this very green and lush environment, which is kind of like a forest. It's rich in wood resources and all this stuff. And so I would call that one like the forest titan. But they were saying there will be more. There will be like titans that will have completely different themes, like water-based titans, which will probably have more water zones and stuff like that. And I guess maybe even a volcano titan, metal-looking titans. They said there's going to be multiple titans that you will be able to explore in this particular game. And that is going to be really cool because there's going to be diverse sceneries, which we've seen stuff like that in Xenoblade Chronicles X. Pretty much every zone had a completely different look and feel from each other, and that was very refreshing. Like whenever you would enter a new zone, it would look nothing like the previous one, and it would just kind of keep propelling you forward to explore more and more and see more of the differences in the enemies that you would encounter in these different zones. So having the different titans with different themes is going to be cool. You're going to have a lot of beautiful vistas as you go throughout the world. Now, these titans essentially live in this area that is essentially a sea of clouds. And according to what people were saying during the presentation of Nintendo's Treehouse, that sea of clouds is going to dictate your access to other titans. So the sea of clouds can essentially, you can have a high tide or a low tide. And depending on how the Sea of Clouds is, you will be able to either access other titans or certain titans will be locked off. Now, I'm wondering if that's going to be something that actually happens dynamically or if it's going to be something that happens as the story progresses. At this point in time, we still don't know. Speaking of dynamic, maybe some people are wondering, does the game have a day-night cycle? Yes, all of the Xenoblade games have had day-night cycles in the past, and usually this also means that there will be different enemies out at night. Now, one thing that I'm hoping they don't bring back from Xenoblade Chronicles X is you would have certain side quests that would be specific to you have to go to this place at nighttime or when it's raining. And sure, you can control going there at nighttime, but whether or not it's going to rain, that becomes a bit of a pain in the ass. And there were several side quests that I wasn't able to do simply because I would keep going back to this location. It was never raining there. And I'm just like, I don't know. How am I going to get this quest done? So hopefully that is something that doesn't come back, but we will see if that is a thing or not. Now, something that is very different in this game from previous titles is your weapons. Now, in previous titles, weapons were essentially weapons, with the exception of Xenoblade Chronicles, where the Monado, which was the Xenoblade, was like this all-powerful weapon that your main character was always wielding, and it would grow in power as the game would advance. Xenoblade Chronicles X took your much more typical weapons are just loot that you pick off the ground. And Xenoblade Chronicles 2, weapons are going to be called basically blades, because every weapon is going to be called a blade, essentially. Even though I think some of these blades are ranged weapons, at least from the demo that they've shown. One of those blades looked very much like some kind of a rifle laser weapon. But these blades are characters themselves. Now, this was something that I found very, very interesting, because like if you see the trailer, there's this girl dressed in red. That girl is essentially the blade itself, which is is it the Aegis blade? I think it's the Aegis blade. Her name is Pyra, and she is the blade. She's like this spirit that inhabits the blade, I think. I'm not exactly sure how this works, but in this world, there are blades and there are drivers. So the drivers are the people who control the blades. So apparently they are bound to those blades, and you will be able to swap blades out. As you progress throughout the game, you'll be able to encounter more blades, and each blade is a character. So if you look at gameplay, you'll usually see a blue link between the character who is doing the fighting and another character who is usually behind him. That other character represents the spirit of the blade. And usually you can do like combos and all these different things with blades, but I find it very interesting that the blades themselves, the weapons, are characters. And apparently you can bind blades to your character. Now I'm curious, because this wasn't explained throughout the demonstration, whether or not only your character can bind new blades, or if you can bind new blades to other characters as well. Because you're going to obviously have more characters in your party. This game uses a party system, so you will always have, at least most of the time, you will have more than one character with you, and depending on the characters that you have with you, you will have different options, different skills, different ways to engage in combat, because each character usually specializes in a different thing. But as I was saying, I'm hoping that you'll be able to bind different blades to different characters so that you can then really customize your strategy. Now, this might not be the case. During the demo, they only showed 2 other characters. One of them was wielding a shield, and you guys know me. I want to be the one to wield the shield. I am the one who shields. And the other character had like these kind of like chakram looking weapons that were actually used for healing. Now that is also another new thing. Each weapon or each blade is basically one of 3 types. There's attacker blades, healer blades, and tanking blades, and the names pretty much speak for themselves. If you want to deal DPS, you're going to need attacker blades. If you want to tank, you're going to need tanking blades, and if you want to heal, you're going to need healer blades. Now for this specific demo, they showed one of the characters was wielding a shield, like I said. The other character was wielding the chakram, so the chakrams were healing. The shield guy was tanking, and the main character was using attacker blades. Now, whether or not you're going to be able to change that around, we still don't know. I hope you can. If you can't, though, it just means that you're going to be DPSing most of the time, which is what most people usually want to do anyways. Not a lot of people go through games and want to tank stuff like me, I guess. Because in Xenoblade Chronicles X, it was somewhat disappointing that I wanted to be a specific class that was a tanking class, use the shield to smash people up, but it would actually hurt me in the long run because there was a character that would always have to be present in pretty much every quest that you did, and that character was also a tank. So you would end up with 2 tanks in your party, which is obviously not an ideal situation. Now, they also changed the arts palette, because the previous way that you used arts in Xenoblade Chronicles was you would use the D-pad to cycle through your skills, and then you would use your skills by pressing a button. So it was essentially almost like you were clicking skills in an MMO. That's kind of how it worked. And that was not the most intuitive ways, even though I enjoyed that combat. I thought it was fine. But what they've did this time around is way cooler. So each blade is going to have access to 4 abilities. Now, those 4 abilities are going to be mapped to the 4 faceplate buttons. Actually, I think it might even be just 3 abilities per blade, because the other thing shows like it's just like a combo counter. As you do more and more skills, your combo meter kind of raises up and enables you access to much more powerful attacks. So it might even be 3 skills per blade. And you'll be able to have 3 blades equipped at any time on your main character. So what does that mean? How do you have access to more skills? You switch the blades. And as you switch blades, you have access to different kinds of skills. So say, for instance, someone uses a special debuff that another one of your blades can take advantage of. You want to switch that blade and punish that debuff. So a blade decides which arts you have, and using the D-pad allows you to switch blades, which makes it much better than using your D-pad to like, oh, let me select my skill. Now let me press my skill. You know, it's going to be just like, oh, I want to use a skill. Boom, press skill, done. So that is a very, very welcome change. Now, another change that we've seen from Xenoblade Chronicles X is you're not going to be swapping between melee and ranged weapons, which was the case in Xenoblade Chronicles X. You're going to be swapping between these blades that I've been talking about. Now, some of them might be ranged, but changing between blades in this game and changing between weapons in Xenoblade Chronicles X is very different. Because Xenoblade Chronicles X is just like press a button, boom, now you're using a machine gun. Press the button again, now you're using a knife or a sword or whatever. And this one, you're going to have to build up some momentum before you can change blades using your auto attacks, I think. Now, these auto attacks there's also a difference there, because in the previous titles, you'd be able to auto attack while in motion, whereas in this one, you can't. You have to stand still to auto attack. And I know some of you guys are like, oh my God, no, why? I can't move. It's bad. It's actually better, because a lot of the times in the other games, I felt like you'd be moving around and you'd be waiting for that auto attack to come. Whereas in this one, you stop moving, your character instantly starts attacking. It's just like boom, 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 starts attacking straight up. So it makes it more of a tactical decision, as opposed to in the other games, there was never really a reason for you to stand still behind a monster, to the side of a monster. There's no reason for you to stand still. You could just like run around the entire time, which wouldn't necessarily make a lot of sense. There wasn't that much commitment to an animation, committing to an attack. Whereas in this one, it's going to be different, because you're going to have to use your auto attacks to charge your arts. The arts are no longer on a cooldown system. Now, in the previous Xenoblade games, you would have cooldowns. So whenever your art was up, you should use an art. This time, you're going to have to use your auto attacks to power up your arts. And as you power up your arts, you also power up the combo meter and power up the blades as well, using your auto attack so that you can swap blades if you so desire. So it's all about being able to position yourself and unleashing some auto attacks to charge your other abilities so that you can then really dish out the deeps. They still have the attacks that will take advantage from being in front, side, and back. That is still a thing. So you'll have specific skills that will have additional effects if you attack your enemies from the side, specific skills that will have more effects if you attack them from the back. And they still have the those debuffs that you would have, like break, topple, and they have a new one that looks amazing, because now you can break an enemy, and after you break the enemy, you can launch him into the air, almost like an air combo. And they didn't show like complex launch combos, but you can do and chain a lot of skills together after you get like a break into a launch. And I can't wait to try out that stuff. That stuff looks amazing. And to top that off, beyond these things of the topple, the break, the launch, there's also these really complex blade combos that they've shown, which is like, okay, so you level something up to level 3. Which is like your combo gauge or indicator, whatever. And as you level this up, eventually you can chain together a skill with one of the other characters. As you chain this skill together, it will then lead you down this tree of skills that you can keep chaining to achieve maximum effect. And it was really cool, because then it ended with just like this massive damage combo with really cool animations and stuff. So it's almost like the party attacks, which I'm assuming is still going to be a thing, where you can just like combine all the attacks of your party and just like have everyone just like basically combine their skills together to achieve maximum effect. Because there was like this party counter that we've seen in Xenoblade Chronicles 1 as well. So that is something that I assume is going to show up, and that is looking really, really good. Now, another thing is specifically about monsters is that in previous titles, you've had indicators that would tell you the behavior of enemies. So like, are they going to respond if they hear me attack another foe? Are they going to respond if I, close up on them and they're going to aggro me? You would have a couple of symbols that would indicate the behavior of different monsters. You're not going to have that anymore. They want you to actually study the monsters this time around so that you become more knowledgeable about what is going to happen if you approach them, if you engage them in combat and all that other stuff, which to me, that is more fun than having everything tapped out for me. Actually figuring out what each of the enemies does is cool stuff. Another interesting bit of information that we saw throughout the demo is that there will be other drivers, which are like the characters that can control blades, which might actually be hunting your character, potentially depending on decisions that you've made, or maybe just as a part of the story, like during certain parts of the story, you will be hunted by other drivers, and you will actually engage them in combat, which seems pretty cool. It's almost like the police is coming after you because of something that you did. And if you, they were saying that if you battle these more powerful drivers, you might actually get some really good loot out of those engagements. And that pretty much all we know so far about Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Now, I don't know about you guys, but from what I've seen in the trailer, as well as what I've seen in the gameplay demo that they shown during the Treehouse live stream, I just can't wait for it. I just need it now. Give it to me now. It's looking really good. I'm hoping I get to use a shield this time around because the shield animations looked really good as well, and it'd be cool to just shield slam enemies into oblivion. The blade combos that you can do and all of those combat things that you can explore. Really curious to check that out. And obviously, I want to see the story because this one's going to be even more focused on story than Xenoblade Chronicles X. So I want to go back to that and I want to see where the story goes because so far, looking pretty damn good. So what do you guys think about Xenoblade Chronicles 2? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys very much for watching the video. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.